All right, are we ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Marin Clean Energy Board of Directors meeting for May 1st, 2014. Why don't we get started? Item 1 of the agenda, board announcements. Doesn't look like we have any this evening. Item 2, public open time on matters not otherwise on the agenda. Welcome, everyone. It doesn't look like we have any public comment this evening on open time.
Excuse me, I actually do have a comment.
Okay. Welcome.
Hi.
And if you could say your name.
Hi, I'm Roy Phillips, and my company is Rep Energy. I'm also a senior project manager for Panasonic Eco Solutions, specializing in their small utility scale solar division. The reason I'm here this evening is Frank Dobar and myself have our partners in several projects here in Marin that we hope to sell energy to MCE. Specifically, there's one called Cooley Quarry. It's an abandoned quarry outside of Nevada. It's going to be a 2.99 megawatt system, so a total of 1.98, 2 meters, 2 utility interconnections. I want to kind of talk about the process we have to go through and how challenging that is with the uncertainty of the PPA price at the end of the tunnel. So Frank and I started this project over a year ago with the planning department. We got a site lease, we got an interconnection agreement, we started all that process. It probably cost about $70,000 to get into the planning approval process. For a conditional use permit, it's ag land. It's also an abandoned quarry, so it's just, there's nothing there but bare dirt. It's about 1.25 miles down a private road, so nobody can see it. We've already had wildlife and biological studies and archaeological studies done. There's basically no negative impacts. But we've been kind of stuck in the planning process for now approximately 6 months. We finally have a public hearing scheduled coming up in June. And the planning department has been, very helpful, but I think that their hands are tied in a lot of ways for the process. And so, but it's moved along. It's, getting closer to the public hearing date. We're very optimistic it's going to be approved. They're going to recommend a categorical exemption because of all the work we've done in the situation of the property. But we're now also in a position where we've already reached out. Panasonic is going to provide construction financing as well as a production guarantee, which is critical so we can get our financing. We have several banks that are willing to finance it with MCE with the current rates, but since we don't actually have a signed PPA yet, and we're not going to get that until we get closer to our public hearing date, we can't really finish our financing. So we put a lot of money out at risk, and we're just wondering if anything can be done within the process to maybe give sort of a conditional approval of a PPA, based on final approval, because we also need to get our financing. So all these things have to happen simultaneously. The conditional use permit, the interconnection agreement, which by the way requires a $400,000 deposit that we need to pay, and then also financing, right? So I guess my ask for this evening is, due to the difficult and long time, that's just kind of a fact of life with the planning department, that if there's any way to get some type of letter of intent. We've gotten emails and things from the planning department sent to MCE that says they're going to recommend a categorical exemption. We have site control, we have our interconnection approval, we have all of these things, but we don't have the final thing from the planning necessary to actually lock in the PPA rate. So we're continuing to write pretty large checks on sort of the hope that it's going to be at the current rate. And so there's a lot of uncertainty for us, and we have 4 more sites in addition to this in Marin County that are more at the beginning of the process. And we're going to do them and work with MCE. But once again, the uncertainty of not knowing what the PPA is going to be when we actually get approval makes it very challenging for us. So, like I said, what I'm hoping is a possibility that we can have some type of letter of intent or conditional approval on a PPA and the meeting is about a month away with the planning department. That if somehow we can get that locked in so we can show this to the bank, we can get our financing in place, because another thing, I don't want to get approval and then we have to go through a 3 or 4 week process. We want to start construction. So it's taken us almost a year to get the project ready as far as approvals go. But it's only going to take us 30 to 45 days to actually build it. We've already procured some of the solar panels. We've done a lot of other things to get ready for this. As well as I already said, we have several other sites with the thought that we're going to work with MCE on those. And something that's going to be a second part of this, we're going to incorporate energy storage. Not in this very first one, but in actually the second phase of this first project, because that also helps us with our interconnection. Sometimes we run into problems with the interconnections with flicker and other things that the utility really resists allowing it to be connected. And energy storage solves a lot of problems. So we are already planning that to be incorporated into our projects also. That's a benefit for MCE, it's a benefit for us. So.
Well, thank you, Roy.
If anybody has any questions about the project?
Actually, let me just tell you, because this is not an agendized item, this is public open time, we actually appreciate you coming in, talking to us about some of your goals. Obviously, we're very interested in increasing local renewable supply. Under the guidelines and rules we are governed by as a public body, we cannot comment on or deliberate on something that's not agendized. So we appreciate hearing about, I assume you're talking about a potential feed-in tariff project. And when you say planning, you're talking about the county?
County, right.
Okay. And I'm also assuming you've been in touch with our staff about the feed-in tariff program and interfacing with staff on it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So again, thank you for letting us know what's going on. But again, the local supply is a very important issue. So thank you. Anyone else from the public on non-agendized items? Okay. Item 3, report from executive officer. Donna.
Okay, well, I have just 2 items this evening, but one of them is really exciting, and I'm so excited I'm the one that gets to say this, but Sonoma Clean Power launched today. So we are not alone any longer. We have another operating CCA, and John and Kirby were up there this morning and have confirmed that the lights are still on. Air conditioners are running.
They're to be greener and cleaner and cheaper, as far as I can tell.
Yes, they are greener, cleaner, and cheaper. So very exciting landmark for today. So congratulations to Sonoma Clean Power. They worked very hard on their program. They have developed a really great team up there that's doing a great job, and we're really excited to see them up and off the ground. Also, on that note, we have another CCA that's getting close to announcing their launch, and they're in Southern California. This is the city of Lancaster. They were up testifying with us on the AB 2145 hearing that happened, and they've made some progress and are looking towards a launch sometime in early 2015. So keep you posted on that. And then the second item I have this evening is the City of Richmond and MCE were presented with an award from Breathe California. for our significant greenhouse gas reductions. And we were given this award in a ceremony just last week with the mayor of Richmond, and we have another plaque on our wall now, and want to give our thanks to the city of Richmond for collaborating with us on this application, and I'm really excited to receive this award. I think it says a lot about the great work that we're able to do in partnership together. And that's it for my report. Oh, I'm sorry, I take it back. There was one more thing. Emily Goodwin has something to report to you all on that relates to press. There's been a lot of press activity, particularly in the last week, and our staff has been very busy keeping up with that and many other things. So we wanted to just give you an idea that might be useful to some of you to be able to receive relevant information in the media in a timely way. So I'll turn it over to you.
So this is just a suggestion. I don't expect you guys can read this, and I don't mean to make you feel uncomfortable because I can barely read it myself, but it's just so you see how simple this is. This is the Google homepage /alerts. So to set yourself up for Google alerts, and you can basically plug in topics that you're interested in, whether it be MCE, CCAs, feed-in tariff, local solar, etc. Some of you may already be doing that, but it will really help based on all the attention we've gotten over the last few weeks, especially, and probably in the next few months. It would really help us to have you guys set up for Google Alerts so you can get real-time press feed information just like we do. It may, show a little uptick in your inbox, but I think you guys can probably handle that because you can pretty well skim through, articles and determine relevancy or validity, etc. Based on the sources that you choose, and you can time it so that you get them every day, every week, etc. And I'm happy to send out directions on how to do it if you have any questions, but I would highly recommend doing that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And one last thing that isn't really part of the official report, but Beth had a baby.
Oh,
Yeah. So baby boy, name is Jack, super adorable. We've seen pictures, and we may get to meet him sometime soon, but we're just really excited for him to let you all know.
That's great news. Don, I assume you'll be taking up the new bill that we're have our focus on later.
Absolutely, we'll be covering that in the legislative update.
Right. Any questions for Don? All right. Item 4, consent calendar. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review that. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar.
second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That matter carries. Item 5, records retention adjustment.
Great. Thanks everybody for those of you who have seen this now for the 4th time. I appreciate it. Those of you who haven't had a chance to review this information, we had some changes, some thoughtful suggestions made by our board at the December board meeting on our existing records retention policy. And those were taken into account. We reviewed that at the following XCOM meeting, and actually it took the next few XCOM meetings to really vet questions that folks had, and I thought it was pretty cool because it showed that you guys really sort of vetted out the potential concerns that might arise if we didn't change our policy to retain documents in perpetuity, as well as certain criteria regarding accounting records. And so my staff report is very brief. Kind of the key takeaway points we talked about in January were contract drafts, electronic correspondence, and there was some concern around not having language around accounting records. And then that was brought back to the following executive committee meeting where we further vetted details such as having date ranges included in our policy, which we determined was not a good idea. So we omitted the date ranges, and we arrived at a final recommendation with the accounting records based on consultation with our external legal counsel who helped us draft the original policy, as well as our accountants, and determined that the 7-year range would work for us. That was what was recommended by our accountant, as well as the legal counsel. And so these concerns were taken into account. One point that's notable was storage space, both not so much physically but electronically with some of the bigger files. And that's not a concern for us at this point. If it becomes a concern with regard to larger data files such as customer data, we can revisit that. We can build in more storage capacity on our server, etc. So those are all really thoughtful suggestions that the XCOM committee has certainly vetted thoroughly, and they're noted. You'll see the comparison. Well, you'll see the changes that were made in the staff report. So that outlines the elements of the policy that were updated. And then the second document shows our tracked changes from our original policy. And the third copy is a final clean copy for your review. And so at this point, I'm happy to take questions if anybody has them that didn't participate in those conversations. And thank you again, XCOM, and recommend that we take a vote to approve the final version.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, this did go through several iterations at XCOM. I appreciate everyone who worked on it, but always interested in additional sets of eyes. If anything, looks like it needs to be tweaked still, but otherwise I think it's a good balance. Any comments or questions by anyone on this? Doesn't appear to be. Members of the public on this exciting topic, records and pensions.
Come on.
Emily.
I'll draw it out. In fact, draw it out. Just kidding.
I make a motion to approve. Just kidding.
On that
I'm
note.
making a motion to approve.
All right, second motion. Do I have a second?
Second, yeah.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That matter carried.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Yeah, when do we leave that door?
Well, I think they got locked out of the front.
Front door.
Oh, okay. Okay, item 6, results of membership analysis for County of Napa.
All right. Well, so we had, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago now, a really good discussion about this particular item at our technical committee meeting, and excited about kind of going over this particular analysis with you this evening. As you're all likely aware, your board has a policy for evaluating potential MCE expansion and the addition of new communities to our customer base. And this particular analysis focuses on the unincorporated areas of Napa County and how that particular expansion might affect MCE. So just a little bit of background here on MCE's current customer base. This is really looking at 2014 on a projected basis. Currently serve about 125,000 customers with annual energy sales approximating 1.3 million megawatt hours. Peak demand is 250 megawatts. And then also there are some statistics regarding our kind of RPS or renewables content in our portfolio and our carbon-free content. I think we've got some good news actually based on some discussions this afternoon. I think we actually undershot the RPS estimates by a little bit, so we're closer to 29% on the RPS eligible than 27, which is good news. We're closer, we're actually over 51%, more like 51.5% on the total renewables. So this is both our green energy eligible as well as our renewable portfolio standard eligible. And then our carbon-free procurement looks like it's going to be over 61%. So all kind of very strong metrics in that regard. And then our emission rate, as a result of the other metrics there, will be lower than we expected, likely in the 365, 67 pounds of CO2 equivalent per megawatt hour range. So anyway, that's just kind of the current lay of the land. As far as Napa County is concerned, back in September of last year, we received a letter requesting kind of evaluation of their addition to MCE's membership. And in December, your board approved and authorized the completion of a quantitative analysis in that regard. And that analysis was completed at the end of March of this year. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. But generally speaking, the high-level kind of summary findings are the addition of Napa County to MCE's current customer base would result in approximate 3% rate reduction for all MCE customers. That's existing customers as well as the new customers that would be added should Napa County come in.
Can you explain that? Like, why is there a rate reduction?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we'll kind of get to that if that's all right. There's some tables or a table towards the end of the presentation that I think will lay that out pretty clearly. Also, as you can imagine, we've got a pretty high renewable energy content, pretty high carbon-free content relative to the incumbent utility. So there would be increases in renewable energy sales on a statewide basis as a result of including Napa County and MCE's service, and then also reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, and those are estimated here for you as well. In terms of the Napa County customer base, it's a little bit different than MCE's. About 16,000 prospective customer accounts within Napa County, and current load, and this was during the 2013 calendar year, I believe, was a little bit over 336,000 megawatt hours, so pretty considerable actually. Average energy consumption across those accounts is relatively high, a little over 1,700 kilowatt hours per month, and then peak demand would be an incremental addition of 62 megawatts. So relatively high number of accounts, but comparatively higher level still of per account energy consumption. And so this is really kind of how it all breaks down. I've commented on some of these numbers already. One thing that's kind of interesting about Napa County's customer base compared to Marin's, and maybe this is kind of intuitive based on the lay of the land, but they have a proportionally higher composition of agricultural and pumping accounts than we do in MCE's current service territories, and that's nearly 10% of all their accounts as opposed to less than 1% for MCE's current customer base. Now, this I guess will come as good news to Beckie, because there's some energy efficiency potential there in Napa County as a result of that. 70% more energy per account, the residential customers that is, than MCE's current customer base. Similar observations can be made in the commercial sector, and kind of on an average basis across all accounts, commercial, agricultural, residential, we're talking about nearly double the monthly energy use average Napa County versus MCE's current customer base. So a lot more energy used there per customer. These are also some interesting graphics here as well. This is an hourly load profile. Essentially what that is about 8,760 hours in a calendar year, and this shows you how that energy essentially flows to customers over the course of that 12-month period. So you can see these dark areas, these peaks right here. We actually have a winter peaking load. So this is, you kind of read up the legend here, and you've got January and February with relatively high use. Again, in November and December here, and then you just kind of have some isolated peaks that occurred. If you recall last year in 2013, we had a really hot stretch in June, and I think that's kind of what's being captured here. And so kind of try to remember this for a second when I go to the next slide, which is Napa County's hourly load profile, and it's almost the opposite, where they have very much a summer peaking load, and one of the nice things to consider, I think, and one of the benefits of adding a load like this to MCEs is that it's a nice complement. So when you sum these two load profiles together, what you get at the end of the day is a much flatter load, which tends to be cheaper to serve. So I think, that's something that was really interesting in analyzing the data here. In terms of the analysis that went on, there were a number of assumptions that went into this, and here it was assumed that we begin serving these customers in April of 2015, and that we have roughly an 85% participation rate. This is kind of based on current data that's coming in from the recent Richmond expansion and customer retention rates in that particular area. That translates into a near 300,000 megawatt hour a year increase in retail electric sales, or approximately 22%, pretty significant. Based on where the power markets are today and where MCE's rates are today, there'd be a projected revenue surplus, and that revenue surplus was basically assumed to offset a share of the administrative costs that are currently borne by MCE's customers. So that essentially spreads the burden over a larger customer base, driving down rates for all customers in the process, leading to that 3% rate reduction that was previously referenced. And this is, Director Connolly, to your question earlier about how this really all breaks out, you can see here the volume that would be served, the revenue that would create based on current rates, the cost of that power supply, as well as some other costs like billing and data management, items like that that we're used to paying for now in managing our current customer base, leading to a total cost of roughly $18 million, with revenues over $23 million and a surplus of $5 million as a result. And that kind of translates to a 3% rate reduction across the board with that surplus. Yes?
Just a quick question. I mean, I think your previous slide projected that they'd be coming online in April of next year, about a year from now. Would that be in time to have the weight impacted reflected in rates going forward as early as next year?
So during the next rate setting process, that would be when those rates would be set, and that's essentially it. And again, we have to assume here, when we completed this analysis, that power prices were at a particular level.
Sure.
And so assuming that those power prices remain constant, that would be the takeaway, yes, that in going into the next rate setting cycle, that's
so there's a within a year a near-term benefit to existing customers.
Yeah, this is indicating essentially an immediate term. Yeah.
Yes.
I just have one question. Why is it just assumed on a 15% opt-out rate, I'm assuming, because it said 85% participation? Are we basing that because of what we saw happen?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So the customer participation rates have been a little bit higher there. I think the level of familiarity with MCE continues to increase over time, and so I think that assumption is pretty reasonable in light of what we've seen in Richmond and just kind of some trends that we're picking up on now in Sonoma as well, and just familiarity with CCA generally speaking.
Good. Thank you.
On the customer base, you sort of average things out, but when you really look at it, you actually have some very large customers that are consuming a lot of power. Very few customers consuming a lot of power. And they make up a big chunk of the overall portfolio. I would assume that it would be important to go out and make sure you market it to those customers or contact those customers directly, because they would be a big part of the equation here.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's where the communication and outreach role really comes into play, and I think as effectively as that went with the Richmond expansion, I think we've got a good handle on messaging strategies in that regard, and really, I think at the end of the day, it's all about the customer making the decision and understanding what that decision is going to be so we can plan accordingly. And so I agree, though, in light of that observation, I think it would be really important to gain a clear understanding of what those customers' intentions are.
Further questions? Yes.
So this is just for discussion. Where are we in the overall process? This is not an action item.
No, it's not an action item. The board's taken action on this, on the question of whether we would want to accept the membership request from NAPA, but it was subject to the quantitative analysis. So we're just presenting the results of the quantitative analysis at this point. They were presented to TechCom.
So what are the next steps then?
Yeah, so the next steps really are on NAPA's side. So NAPA will need to approve the state-required ordinance enabling CCA in their jurisdiction, and along with that, a resolution formally requesting membership. That is likely to happen in early June. They plan to have a study session in May, and then count the action of their board of directors in early June.
Larry?
So would our conservation program expand into NAPO?
Yes.
Sort of if they came in, that would be a new area? So that's part of it.
They would be eligible for our program at the moment that they formally joined, even before we delivered service to their customers. Similar with the city of Richmond. At the beginning of the year that we have those energy efficiency funds, because it's for anyone in our service territory that included.
So it sounds like they have a big air conditioning load, for the seasonal peaks.
It's great, really cost effective for energy efficiency improvements. It's hard to sell those kind of improvements on the coast when you rarely turn on your AC. So I'm definitely trying to get my hands on this stuff.
And that was part of the analysis. I mean, part of what we look at before even bringing the request to the board for consideration and membership is, are there opportunities for energy efficiency? Are there opportunities for renewable energy installations, distributed renewable energy? Are there opportunities for more feed-in tariff projects? So far, we haven't found a community where there aren't those opportunities, but I think that in Napa, what we're seeing is a higher than expected opportunity on the energy efficiency fund, which is really exciting to see. One other step in the process that I should have mentioned is the filing of an implementation plan. So after Napa goes through the formal process of adopting the CCA ordinance, then that will trigger our efforts to get the implementation plan revised, and we'll bring that to the board for approval probably in the July timeframe. And then after that happens, or along, possibly on a parallel track, we'll be looking at initiating the procurement that will need to happen to serve the load in Napa. So that's something that we'll be looking at really coming up here in the next month or so.
Great.
Don, what is your assessment of feed-in tariff opportunities, smaller projects?
Yeah, that's another area where we've been a little bit surprised by the level of interest. There are a lot of wineries in Napa, as many of you probably know. Surprise. But a lot of them have solar on their facility to help cover their own load. And many of them have had challenges because they own parcels that are on adjacent pieces of land that aren't always connected to each other under the same meter. And so what they really are wanting to do is use the solar on one piece of land to power facilities on another chunk of land. And that hasn't been an easy process through PG&E to date. So what some of the folks in the winery community have asked of us is, well, gosh, could we just sell into your feed-in tariff program? That would be a better way to kind of turn around the revenue in a more straightforward way. So there does seem to be an interest. There's certainly land, possibly more opportunities for land that would be a good fit for solar. So I expect we'll see some interesting opportunities coming out of that community.
Members of the public?
Good evening, Patrick Lowe. I'm the Natural Resources Conservation Manager for Napa County. Brad Wagon-Connect, our supervisor, had hoped to be here. He had a conflict and sent his regrets. We certainly look forward to the opportunity to be a member of the MCE. There are an incredible number of opportunities within the community, some of which you've addressed with the wineries. We've worked with a number of the wineries already, and I understand their difficulties with PG&E, and if you sit down with them over a glass of wine, they'll really tell you how they feel about it. And we've had we do a lot of the outreach for all of our environmental programs. So we have a good working relationship with all our ag industry, wineries and vineyard properties as well. So we look forward to working with your staff in outreaching and looking at opportunities in that regard. And part of it was quite easy to see what some of the energy differential might be. Just pulled up the weather here for San Rafael, and if you pull it up for Napa and go up Valley, it's about a 10-degree spread right now. We're just in early May, and as we move into the year, our air conditioning costs as you go up Valley. So I moved from the upper end of the valley down to Napa, so I get a little bit of the coastal influence, but it certainly makes a big difference. So in any case, I was happy to have the opportunity to participate and look forward to working with you if it goes that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Well,
Damon, can
yes.
I just ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Hi, Roy Phillips, Rep Energy, and I actually have a question for Kirby. in regards to, is there any geographic limitation that would stop another community from joining MCE? Does it have to be within some certain distance or within, could any community from California join MCE?
Yeah, potentially, yes.
Okay.
They may not be contiguous, yeah.
Thank you, that's all I have.
I mean, we have a range of criteria we use, geography being one. There's no set limitation, nevertheless. Kirby, are the criteria published or?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can speak to that. At our board retreat last fall, we adopted a policy called it was the 007 expansion policy.
That's right.
Yeah, and it delineated two, yes, 007. It delineated two types of membership that we might consider, and this is actually a good thing to cover for multiple reasons right now, just as a refresher. But there are the affiliate membership was established for communities that are within 30 miles of our existing jurisdiction and have a customer base or an expected customer base of 40,000 or less. And the reason we use that number is because it's similar to Richmond, and that's something we'd done before. We'd had experience with that. So we thought, well, we kind of know how that works. We know we can handle something that's nearby and about that size or smaller. And so for the affiliate membership process, we actually laid out a process, a step-by-step process. It has 7 steps. And starts with the governing body requesting membership in MCE, and then we go through membership analysis, which is the results of which Kirby just reported on. And there are a number of other steps along the way, some of which I've mentioned, and membership criteria that are kind of applied at the beginning of the process to determine whether to move forward. So that's what happens with the affiliate membership category. And then the other category was called special consideration membership, and this would be for a community that is either larger than 40,000 customers or is more than 30 miles away from our existing jurisdiction. And we haven't yet set a process for the special consideration membership communities. And that's something that our executive committee might take up at some point in the future, but at this time we don't yet have a process for that. We've only have a policy in place that says, yes, expansion conforms to our mission and we want to see more greenhouse gas reductions in the state, and therefore we'll look for ways we can do that.
Dawn, are you guys tracking the potential enactment of AB 2145 alongside of NAPA's schedule for becoming a member, so that obviously if 2145 were to be enacted, it would have a dramatic impact, and NAPA would want to become a member prior to such enactment. So I mean, it's so obvious, I assume that's being tracked, but it's always good to ask even if it is obvious.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And we're going to spend some time talking about 2145 in the legislative agenda, but it certainly relates to the discussion on NAPA. I think that while the proposed bill would absolutely have a tremendous impact on the ability for any CCA to start or expand, we are hopeful that before it gets too much further along the process, that it will be terminated and it won't go further. It will die.
Yeah, good.
But of course, we don't know that for certain. And so I think that we'll be watching it very closely and we'll be engaged in it very closely. If it starts to look less likely that we're going to see that kind of outcome, or if we really think there's a chance that we won't see that outcome, I think we may need to make some plans for accelerating the timeline. We certainly are capable of doing that. It would require doing a procurement during the summer, in the June, July, August timeframe. It would also require sending out opt-out notices as early as August or September, so that we could do an enrollment beginning November 30th and having all customers enrolled during the month of December. That would be the plan B. If it's
that would
necessary.
be the fast track approach. Okay.
Okay, anything further on this item? All right, well, thank you. Item 7, power purchase agreement with Calpine Energy.
So as a result of our kind of ongoing load analysis, we discovered that a small net short position for us in our portfolio. So we went out to Calpine late last year to discuss the potential to add some renewable energy to the existing contract from our 2013 open season contract. We have successfully negotiated some incremental purchases from that contract for both 2014 and 2015. We're using an existing contract from the open season. It's called an EEI master agreement, which allows us to add multiple additional products and services as we need it in the future. So it made it very easy for this transaction, to enable this transaction. So we'll be adding 15,000 megawatt hours of renewable geothermal power to our mix for 2014, and 10,000 megawatt hours for 2015. This is, again, with Calpine Services. Thanks.
One more?
One more, please.
One more, yes?
Yeah. So Calpine's been around since 1984. It is one of the larger, small, independent power producers in the country. We've got a total of 27,000 megawatts of both conventional and renewable energy on the grid right now, and they're building another 1,100 megawatts of future potential. Their offices are in Dublin. They're headquartered in Texas. They've been a great counterparty so far to work with. Been very receptive and very flexible in working with us on our requirements.
So they're already a supplier.
They're already a supplier.
This is just an additional.
An additional incremental purchase. So I can go to the next one. So this graphic is just kind of, it's a little hard to tell because it is such a small incremental purchase, but you can see on the top of the chart there was a small shortage between our expected requirements for RPS compliance and we had our portfolio. The next slide, please. So then with this small purchase from Calpine, it sort of decreases that net short position on the top of the chart there. There is still some variation in that as both the production from our existing contracts and also our load estimates do vary from time to time. There's a lot of variability that we need to adjust for, but we're pretty confident this will take care of all our needs. Yes.
Is this all from the geysers?
This is all from the geysers.
Okay.
Do we know what caused the net short?
A couple of factors are some of our existing landfill gas plants. Production came on later than we expected last year, and also their production was lower than we expected. They provided their estimate of production, slightly lower than that. We also had
retail sales were a little higher too.
Retail sales were also higher because of the much reduced opt-out rate in Richmond. So both those things combined to create this small capacity change. Any other questions?
And how was the pricing for the incremental?
The pricing is very good. This is it's a little bit different transaction for us. This is an index plus transaction, so we'll take the normal power price and then a small premium over that for the renewable attributes of the project. So whereas our last contract was about $70, did you say that for the record?
Yeah.
This is very similar to that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Members of the public? Okay, well, thank you, Greg. Any kind of issues in terms of planning going forward that we need to be thinking about, or is this, it sounds like what you're pitching it as is part of, in effect, ordinary business. We're within that increment.
Yeah, this is certainly a very small transaction comparatively to our entire portfolio. It's just a small adjustment on the gas pedal, so to speak.
All right.
We do have an open position that you can see on this chart for bucket 2. We're addressing that now. We've got a bead on a pretty good deal that we'll be bringing back shortly. But that would be the other piece that's still open.
And that's in plan, that's, we're aware of that. Though,
right? Yes.
Okay, good. Looks like an action item.
No, actually, this fell into the category of internal operational authority. So we've already completed this transaction, but we wanted to just spend a little time making sure the board was aware of it because it's an interesting transaction, and we really like doing business with Calpine, which is close by. And we thought it would be useful to just explain what we're doing with them right now, just as on an update basis.
And this is this bucket line?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, good job. Why don't we move on to item 8, energy efficiency update?
Good evening, board, members of the public. Short and sweet tonight, just the way we like it. There's 3 things that I really wanted to update you folks on that I think are newsworthy for this month. That's the schools program that we are rolling out a revamped version of, the Green Loan Program, which we're continuing our advertising campaign for, and then the 2016 Energy Efficiency Portfolio Planning, which we're really just starting to kick off this week. So it's pretty exciting. Other than that, it is worth noting that the other 3 major program components, multifamily, small commercial, and the rest of the single family program are just humming along. We're getting new applications every week at this point for multifamily, which is really exciting. So we're starting to see some traction in the marketplace. That noted, the schools program, we just launched the revised schools program today. You may recall that what we did last year was we worked with Strategic Energy Innovations. They're an organization based out of San Rafael, actually, and they do a lot of work with schools. They developed a curriculum, they delivered it in a classroom, and it was really intended to help kids get excited about energy and then go home and conduct an energy assessment on their own homes using our My Energy tool, the web-based tool that we have available for customers. And it was a great program. We had a good amount of traction from it. But what we really found is that the number of action plans that were generated on our web portal, based on the amount of money we were putting into it, wasn't really delivering the kind of bang for the buck that we needed to meet our targets. So we got together with Strategic Energy Innovations and said, what can we do to this program to redesign that and really extend the efficacy of our dollars and reach as many people as we can with the investment that we have available. And so what we strategized was a new program design that's rolling out literally this week. The first step is to go into these schools and actually provide an assembly. So rather than treating one classroom at a time, we're getting the entire school in one opportunity. And they have a really cute video that they've developed to get the kids excited and engaged in energy. And then from there, what they do is they transition it to a walkathon model. So they empower these kids as ambassadors for the My Energy tool and send them out into the neighborhoods to go and get as many pledges as they can from neighbors, friends, whoever they interact with. Kids are great at that kind of thing. And the idea is that we will actually pay the school money for every pledge that we get from the community member. And we have other incentive structures in there as well. There are awards for the kid that gets the most pledges. There are awards for the classroom that gets the most actual action plans. So not just a pledge, but someone who actually goes online and enrolls into an action plan. And so we're hopeful that this model, because we're getting kids and hopefully parents excited about the idea of investing in the school, will get more community buy-in and more uptake in the tool. So we'll get to wait and see how it works. We're starting out with just 2 schools in the spring. So we'll see how the program works. We'll be able to make any tweaks, and then we can revisit the program design in fall and see if it worked, if we've got the kind of reach that we intended, or if we maybe should consider more of a hybrid approach of what we did last year as well. So the first assembly kicked off this morning at Blue Sutton and Novato. The second assembly will be next week at Hamilton. And then, as I was saying, we hope to get 6 schools enrolled to the program in fall. The Green Home Loan Program outreach, we have been doing an ad campaign that started in April and will run throughout May. It is both a print campaign and an online campaign. It's taking place both in Marin and in the city of Richmond. We talked extensively about this last month. Jamie provided a lot of detail about the program in the board update last month. So just a reminder that that's still occurring. In addition to the print ad campaign, the print and online campaign, we're also rolling out on-the-ground outreach this month. We have developed a handful of materials that we're going to be bringing to different places. We'll be occupying the sidewalk at Fairfax Lumber this Saturday. It's a great opportunity for us to actually go talk to folks who are interested in doing projects, let them know about our financing, and really get them at those trigger points when they're considering home improvements. We'll be at Marin Ace next week, and we are working furiously, especially with the tremendous help of Megan and Allison Kirk, who I believe many of you met last week, who's helping us out to line up more events and get more opportunity to interface with the community. One thing I wanted to pause and talk about right now, I believe you all have the Marin Home magazine sitting in a pile in front of you. It's a great production that the Marin Builders Association puts out. We've been working hard on trying to find ways to partner with the Marin Builders Association and finally made some headway with that. We have had some great relationship building going on with them. Again, thanks in huge part to Megan's efforts. Page 54 of this particular magazine, you'll see that we have both a full-page ad on the Green Home Loan Program, and opposite that is a little advertorial with yours truly about the benefits of home performance upgrades. So we really like that nice placement that they were able to give to us, where we have both a little bit about why you might want to do a home upgrade and then the how you can on the next page. So we're very excited about that. What you may also notice on that advertorial is that there's a little phone number included on the ad, an 866 number. We talked about this briefly last month, but just as a refresher, the Bay Area Regional Energy Network has a program called the Home Energy Advisor. And that program is a place where you can actually, as a consumer, you can call a phone number and talk to a person who has a lot of information about the home upgrade program. It's a very complex upgrade program. There's a lot of steps, and customers can often get extremely confused because, I mean, it's frankly a really confusing program. So this is a really great tool that the They Run program offers, so customers can actually talk to someone, get advice about their home. The objective isn't to sell projects, but it's to really help the customer understand what their options are. So we've been working with the Home Energy Advisor program. We gave them information about our loans, and we got their permission to direct customers from the ad campaign there, so that customers will get really experienced, hands-on information about the program. It's been very successful for us so far. Since we began working with them, which was really in the month of April, they've made 42 referrals back to our Green Home Loan program. And from that, 7 customers who called had already heard about the program, so that's good news as well. It's too soon yet for us to know if those are translating to applications, because as I said, this program often has many steps, but we're hopeful that it will be, and I hope I can report back on that next month. Before I jump off of this topic, the one other thing I want to say, did anybody see the banner, the big banner that was in the doorway as they walked in? Wow, great, we got one nod. You should take a look before you go, because it's really neat. This is a nice piece that we had for our tabling effort, so we can really draw attention. Hopefully we'll work a little better on the side.
And it's on the left side.
Yeah, make us a person.
Bigger than a person. So be sure to take a look at that before you go. We think that'll be a nice addition to our tabling track. And then the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is something that I'm extremely excited about, which is talking about kicking off our 2016 energy efficiency portfolio planning. So one of the things that we thought would be really neat to do this year is to actually try as much as possible to make this a grassroots effort and work with the community at the earliest stages to get ideas from the community, from the experts that we know who work locally in the area about not only where is energy being used in this county, what programs are out there, what's working, what isn't, but also where are the right places to actually have an intervention? Where do we need an incentive to drive action? Maybe we don't need a financial incentive, maybe we need education, maybe we need more trained workforce. So what we're planning on doing is having a series of meetings to really kick this process off. The first will be taking place in late May. This will be an invitation-only sort of stakeholder planning session. We'll be inviting folks from the county, from the city of Richmond. If our fellow cohorts from Napa want to join, I would like to actually extend an invitation to you, so let's get your card before you leave. And it'll be a great opportunity to really get folks in a room. We're going to try to get a bunch of data in front of them about a week ahead and just brainstorm about what can we do here. From that, we'll develop a handful of straw proposals, and then the thought there is that June 25th, we're actually booked at the Richmond City Hall from 6 to 8 p.m. We're working with Adam Lenz on that and on publicizing that. And then following that, the week of July 23rd, we'll probably do an event at the Marin County Civic Center, although we're determining the venue as we go. And those will be open to anybody. We'll be broadcasting as loudly as we can for anyone who will listen the opportunity to come and take part in those meetings and throw some darts at our proposals. Let us know if we missed anything. Let us know where the priorities should be, and really help us kind of focus in on what makes sense locally for an efficiency program. One other thing is that we're developing a listserv. For those of you folks listening at home, this will be up on our website, mcecleanenergy.org/EE, and this will be a chance for you to actually sign up on our website to let us know that you want to be kept in the loop about energy efficiency in particular. So as we start to develop the program proposals and send them out for public review, as we send out the agenda and invites for the upcoming public meetings, it's a way for folks to stay in the loop about that and make sure that if they're interested, that they can attend. So those were the updates I had tonight, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Questions for Beckie? All right, well, thank you. Members of the public, any questions on energy efficiency? Thanks for the update.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a lot of good things going on.
The tabling sounds great.
It does.
It's fun. It's really fun, actually. Get out in the community.
Check out the San Rafael Farmers Market.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion on Sundays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that I'm local. Thursdays and Sundays.
Yeah, every Thursday. Okay, item 9, communications update.
All right. I don't have a PowerPoint today, and I just have a few brief updates that I want to share with you all, so I'll get right into it. The first is about rates. I wanted to just confirm and remind everyone that today PG&E did implement a rate increase that results in significant savings for our customers. So we're really excited about that. We're excited to be offering lower rates for our customers. Based on those rates, we expect to save our customers just under $6 million this fiscal year, so $5.9 million, and that doesn't take into account another rate increase that PG&E has proposed for later on, sometime this year. As part of our rate analyses for our customers, we did some research to see what we saved for the city of San Rafael. And this is just interesting and good information to know that last year, for example, the city of San Rafael saved $30,000 on its electricity bills by having MCE light green service. And with our new rates this year and PG&E's rate increase, we estimate that the city of San Rafael will be saving closer to $47,000. So it's a pretty significant savings, and I just wanted to share that with all of you because each of your cities are also probably saving, and if you're interested, we would be happy to do an analysis for your city's municipal accounts. So just reach out to me and send an email. Yeah, hands up. I'll take notes.
What does that equate to in a percentage? So 30,000 of what?
You know what? I don't know the percentage off the top of my head. I could look that up for you, but unfortunately I don't know what the percentage is.
Is that 1% or 5% or what is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look that up. But that's a great question. But it's still $30,000. So we'd be happy to do those cost comparisons for your municipal accounts as well. It does take a little bit of time for us to run all those numbers, but please reach out to us and let us know, and I'll take note of City of Richmond, Novato, and did you raise your hand for Ross?
San
Anselmo. Okay, great. Another thing about rates is that we're currently working with PG&E right now to develop the joint cost comparison that we send out to all customers, whether they're with MCE or PG&E only. We are required to have that go out in July per statute, but we're planning on having that go out in early to mid-June. So we'll likely be reporting on that at the next board meeting as well. It includes a cost comparison for different customer classes, but it also includes a power sources comparison, so what we submit for our power content label to the California Energy Commission, and it also shows the greenhouse gas emissions for PG&E, light green, and deep green. So we'll be talking about that at an upcoming board meeting. The other thing I wanted to let you guys all know about is, you might have seen this in a press release that I think we just sent out last week, but the County of Marin met its greenhouse gas targets 8 years ahead of time, and it was in large part due to the renewable power that's provided by MCE. So we're super happy for the County of Marin. That's pretty fantastic. The goal was to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions to 15% 1990 levels by 2020. And it's 2014 now, but the way they did their analysis, it was for 2012 numbers, which is why it's 8 years ahead of schedule. So we're really happy to be able to help contribute to those massive emissions reductions. The other thing I wanted to report out on is the Heart Deep Green campaign. We wrapped up that campaign at the end of the month, and we saw 40 new Deep Green signups. The winners of the campaign were the Marin Agricultural Land Trust, the Asian Pacific Environmental Network, and also the Sierra Club on behalf of the Clean Energy Coalition. So that was a great program to get more Deep Green signups. And we're going to be looking into doing another Deep Green campaign where customers who sign up vote for an organization that's promoting Deep Green. But the next one that we're thinking about developing would be based on schools. So we're hoping to partner with schools in Marin and Richmond for the next project. And then the last thing I wanted to report on is our syndicated solar program. You may remember that's what we were calling it, and we have officially coined it Soul Shares. We sent out our first public announcement about that yesterday through our email contact list. There's about 4,000 people who received that email, actually all across the Bay Area. It's not just people in our customer service area because anyone can sign up for it, but we saw a really huge response in that email. So we send out email blasts every month, and usually we get a couple of responses to the email, a couple of phone calls related to it. But yesterday we had 15 responses to the email within like the first 2 hours. So it's really great. We already have 20 people who have requested to sign up for Soul Shares. And I think that's a really good indication that this is going to be a popular program and in high demand. So that's all, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jamie? Roy?
Can you tell me what Soul Shares is?
Yeah. So Soul Shares is a 100% local solar product. So right now we are offering our customers light green, which is 50% renewable. It's a mix of renewables, solar, wind, geothermal, biogas. We're also offering deep green, which is 100% renewable. Right now it's 100% wind. And now we're also offering Soul Shares. So it's going to be connected to a feed-in tariff project. And it will be a solar project, so a customer can buy 100% solar power that'll be in our service area, so in Marin or Richmond, and the cost of Soul Shares is directly tied to the cost that we pay for our feed-in tariff. So when customers choose this program, they are basically locking in their rate for, depending on how long they want to stay in the program, but for up to 20 years.
And currently, how does that compare with like the existing deep green program? Is it
the cost?
Close? Yeah, is it?
It's more expensive, so it would be about a 25%, maybe a little bit higher of a cost increase.
But over time, that the graphs would sort of cross over each other.
Yeah, it has that potential because that rate is going to, stay directly connected to the feed-in tariff. There's also the potential that that rate that we're initially offering could go down as more feed-in tariff projects are put into the grouping.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions? Okay, thanks, Jamie. Item 10, regulatory and legislative update.
In the interest of coherence, I'm going to cede the floor to Dawn.
We're all very angry.
Yeah, Shelby has been working 2 or 3 jobs the last month, and she's gonna chime in on anything I might miss. But I wanted to primarily give an update on AB 2145. There are a lot of components to this bill beyond just the straight technical legal side that Shelby's well aware of, but also the political, the communications, the operational. It has a lot of impacts. And so just to start off with sort of a brief orientation, there's a bill that was introduced early in this legislative session out of Bradford's office on the Assembly side, AB 2145. We've been watching this bill since January, but it was a spot bill, so it really didn't have any content in it. The content was added just a couple of weeks ago, actually, the day before a week-long recess, and which was followed by the day that it was supposed to be heard in committee. So we got very busy, looking at the language, and the language that was added through the amendment at that time was a very, very concerning. And for those of you that remember Prop 16, this is a little bit of a rehash of Prop 16. It would change the CCA structure in the state to make it an opt-in program rather than an opt-out program. That's probably the most important thing to know about the bill. It also has a couple of other provisions. One that I'll mention is it would require a CCA, when filing its implementation plan before serving customers, to provide a 5-year rate projection and comparison against the incumbent utility in its service territory, and also provide a 5-year greenhouse gas projection for going forward 5 years and a comparison again to the incumbent utility. As you all likely know from being on our board, that's actually not feasible to do. The IOUs actually don't even know what their rates are going to be until they've been approved by the CPUC. That's done sometimes the day before the rates go into effect, certainly not 5 years in advance. The greenhouse gas accounting is done typically 2 years after the fact. PG&E released their 2012 greenhouse gas emissions factor in February of 2014. So there's typically a 2-year lag. So those components of the bill are problematic as well. The primary concern, of course, is the opt-in nature of the bill and how that would impact future CCA programs, essentially making it impossible for any future CCA programs to launch. And could also impact expansion of existing CCA programs. This bill was heard in committee for the first time just this week. It was heard on the 28th. And the chair of the committee, it was heard in the Utilities and Commerce Committee, the chair of the committee actually is the author of the bill. So that added an extra layer of challenge, I think, for those on the committee to really vote their conscience or vote, based on the facts. Nonetheless, we undertook a very high level of effort to engage and educate committee members and others on the Assembly side. We worked with a coalition of many advocates. We worked with Sonoma Clean Power and the folks they have up there. We worked with folks in Lancaster that are preparing to launch a CCA. And we really pulled together a coalition that was enormous. And Shalini gets huge kudos for the work that she did on pulling together within 4 days. I think it was 35 opposing entities. Big ones, like Sierra Club, and I think the most recent one that I heard of is Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Many cities and towns around the state that are wanting to start a CCA program. And for those of you that have the spiral bound booklet in front of you, you should pick it up and look at the back of it. It has a list of many of the organizations that have signed on to oppose the bill. But it doesn't include all of them because this was published the week before the committee hearing so that we could hand deliver it to all of the folks on the committee. And there have been more opposing parties that have signed on since that date. So at this time, the list is even longer. But it's quite an impressive list, and it's due to really a huge grassroots effort from our office coupled with many others that have been working hard to get an opposition out around this bill. The bill was, I guess I should say one more thing about what was done in preparation for the hearing. This packet was put together, and it includes a couple of sections that I think are important because some of what's happening around this bill, it's very reminiscent of 2010 for those of you that were involved in some of our efforts of launch at that time. There's a lot of misinformation being circulated by the folks that are supporting this bill. This time I believe they have 4 supporting entities. PG&E is one of the 4. And the misinformation that's being tossed around, it's frustrating to hear it because it's so easily refuted, but if there's no one there to refute it at the time, it kind of sinks in and has a negative impact on decision makers. To try and rebut many of the statements that are out there, this packet was created to really give folks an overview of who MCE is, what we're accomplishing. We talk a lot about our ability to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, get more renewables onto the grid. There's also a lot of discussion about customer engagement because some of the language that we're hearing in this bill relates to public disclosure and kind of this concern about customers being made a default customer of a new entity when they had been served by a monopoly in the past, and why should it be set up that way instead of the other way around? So there's a lot of information in this packet about the customer disclosures that we send out and the high level of customer engagement that we undertake when we're enrolling a new community. We put together on page 15, you can see the list of all the events that we conducted in the city of Richmond, our most recent expansion. There were over 80 events, and they're all listed here by date and location. And some of them were in bilingual context. And so there's a lot of good information here. One of the other big bits of misinformation that are circulating around this bill relates to MCE and its ties to union labor. And So we have a lot of information pulled together that's included in this packet that talks about some of the power purchase agreements that we have in place, some of the counterparties that we're already doing business with that are using union labor. Some of our PPAs have a project labor agreement required. Some of the existing suppliers that have been around for years have strong ties to union labor, and there's been a lot of misinformation about MCE not supporting union labor, which is certainly not the case. So this is a useful reference document, and it's actually being updated in real time, and we should have a new version of it going out for the next committee hearing. Now getting back to the update from Monday's committee hearing, there was a presentation by the supporting side. PG&E did sit at the dais for this presentation, and we've been told by the folks that they're meeting with that this is PG&E's #1 legislative objective of the year, is to get this bill passed. Lots of misinformation. For those of you that were able to listen to the hearing, I know everyone was just really disheartened hearing the level of misinformation and the inability to really refute much of it. It was very frustrating. The misinformation included comments about MCE's power content, comments about how the opt-out process works, comments about job creation results, and they even went so far as to reach way back to a report that was presented back in 2009 before we were even serving customers, and using that as a negative comment rather than really looking at the results that we've achieved in the recent years. There was no discussion about our RPS compliance. There was no discussion about our compliance with all the other state agencies that we're required to comply with, and the reporting that we do, and that we're in good standing with all of these agencies, and that we've been able to supply a very high level of renewable content, double what the incumbent utility is providing at competitive rates. Those comments were not made, unfortunately. We were able to, after the supporting entities spoke, they asked the audience if there were any other supporters in the audience, and nobody stood up. It was then the opportunity for the opposing speakers to come up, and we had, as planned, we had 4 speakers come up from different jurisdictions. So we wanted to really shift the focus beyond just MCE. The one exception to that is the 4th speaker, which I'll explain. So we had Joe Como from ORA, which is really affiliated, this is the Office of Ratepayer Advocates. They're affiliated with CPUC, and I think they're seen really as a neutral body that's really engaged in supporting the ratepayers. They spoke on this item. And then Jeff Cyphers, who's the Executive Director of the Sonoma Clean Power Program, spoke. Heather Swan from the Lancaster, City of Lancaster CCA effort spoke. They flew up for the hearing. And then we also had a representative from Mayor McLaughlin's office in the City of Richmond speak. They all did a great job of talking about issues from their perspective. And then a long line formed of folks that were opposing the bill, and we had say over 35 folks come up from representing pretty large entities, some of which are listed here, opposing the bill. At the end of the hearing, there were no opposing votes, and the bill passed out of committee. So next steps are there were no opposing votes. There were some abstentions, but the vote passed out of committee. So next steps are the bill will be going to the Appropriations Committee on the Assembly side. It will then go to the Assembly floor. The bill will also be heard in the Senate Utilities and Commerce Committee, which will be a slightly different set of circumstances, as the chair will not be the author of the bill. A lot of lobbying is needed, so we may be calling on you, letting you know when we're in Sacramento doing some visits with decision makers. If you already have plans to be in Sacramento or at the Capitol, please let us know. We'd love to hook you up with Emily Papas, who's our representative in Sacramento. Knows who are the right folks for us to be talking to at this stage of the game, and we'd love to get in as much face time as possible. I think that clearly we, as an agency, we're outnumbered, and so we're not able to camp out in front of the door of all the committee members for all of the committees. But the good news is that we have the facts on our side, and that helps a lot. And I think we're going to be doing everything we can to get those facts to the people that need to hear them. So keep us posted if you're going to be in Sacramento and would like to assist with this effort. Many of you have already participated. I know some of our members have sent in letters of opposition. If any of your jurisdictions have lobbyists, or you have ties to other organizations that you might sit on a board of that has lobbyists that would be interested in this issue, we'd love to connect with them and potentially leverage some of their time to work with our team on this. It's really a grassroots effort that needs a lot of support. So I think those are the main points to cover with regard to the bill. There are a few other side issues that have sprung up out of this that were covered in some recent press, which I'll get to in a minute, but I'd like to kind of pause and see if folks have questions about the bill and the process underway. Yeah.
Just given your description of the strength of the support for the bill, what's your source of optimism expressed earlier that it'll die?
I think that there were quite a few tactics that were used to get this bill out of that particular committee. One is the language in the bill not being released until essentially the day before the hearing. It was released the week before recess, the day before a hearing. During that week of recess, we managed to pull together so much opposition that by the time the end of that week rolled around, the chair chose to bump it up another week. And during that week, there was some activity, some questionable activity that the IBW 1245 undertook in our jurisdiction, which I can talk about in a minute. I think it shows, well, I won't get into what I think it shows, but I will say that it's very unusual to have a bill brought forward by the chair of a committee that doesn't get out of that committee. It's practically unheard of. Our Sacramento contact, let us know from the get-go that it would be very unlikely that we'd be able to have the bill die in that committee. But what we could do is plant a seed, in the minds of the folks that are voting, so that when the bill gets to the floor, that they might be willing to think about it in a different way. One of the things, I think that because so much opposition came forward on that day, at the end of the hearing, there were some suggestions being tossed out by the committee members related to, well, what if we took out this opt-out thing? What if we just focused on customer disclosure? Mm-hmm. That's something that MCE would love. Or have more disclosure, the better. Particularly if it's both sides doing disclosure. So it's possible that there may be openness to shifting the bill into something that is not as threatening fundamentally, or not threatening at all potentially to CCAs. But I think that the fact that the chair of the committee brought this bill forward, and the limited time that he allowed for public dialogue on it were the two factors that resulted in it getting out of that committee. And I do expect that, given the success that we've had as an agency in achieving 80-32 goals, many, the goals of that the state has, and the track record that we have of complying and going beyond compliance of all the state regulations that apply to us. At the end of the day, I think that it will be clear that stopping CCAs from existing in the state is not the right decision, and I think we'll be able to make that case in future committees and get it done. I also, if we aren't successful in future committees or on the floor votes, I can't anticipate, I wouldn't imagine that this is a bill that the governor would be comfortable signing.
Dawn, do you have a rough timeline for how this will play out, like when, what are the steps and where was the end game and the final deadlines and those kinds of things?
Yeah, so and feel free to jump in, Shelly, if I get any of this wrong, but I believe the Appropriations Committee will be next week on Wednesday. The Assembly vote, I'm not sure, I don't think that that's been scheduled yet. And actually, you know what, I take it back, I think that one wasn't, that was a tentative date, but it may not be firm now.
It has to be before May 30th.
So we don't know the date exactly. I think that the kind of the deadline for it moving through all committees and hitting both floors is around August, September timeframe. Does that sound right to you, Shelley?
Yeah, I'm just looking for it now, but I'm pretty sure it has to be to the governor by August 30th or maybe September 30th. I'll double check right now.
We're going to recess in August.
Yeah. Let me just search through my myriad 2145 emails right now.
While she's doing that, Don, isn't there some, I don't know if it's in the CPUC or someplace, isn't there some rule that constrains the investor-owned utilities from engaging in activities that are aimed at attacking CCAs? And I'm pretty sure there is, and assuming that, what is that, and how does that factor into AB 2145?
That is a great segue to the other thing I was going to talk about. So there is a code of conduct currently in place that applies to any IOUs with the CCA in their jurisdiction. And this code of conduct was created out of a piece of legislation that we worked closely with Senator Leno's office.
That was Leno's legislation.
2011.
Yeah.
It went into effect January 2012, and the CPUC was required to implement it. And in the recent months, we've come to you to talk about how SB 790 is what it was called, the Leno, it's also called the McGlashan bill. It was not fully implemented. The cost shifting provisions in that bill that protect us against kind of the shifting of costs that PG&E has been doing quite a bit in the last many years really wasn't addressed. But what we're seeing now is that even the code of conduct piece, which they did go through the motions of implementing, wasn't implemented in a way that really protects the CCA against the consequences that were intended to be protected against. The code of conduct requires that an IOU file an implementation plan if they plan to market in any CCA community. And the reason for that is so that there can be transparency, so they can say, here's how we're going to do it. And they also need to create an independent entity that does that without all of the advantages that the monopoly provider has, like customer lists, for example. Just to give everyone a reminder, a concrete reminder, in 2010, PG&E used their customer list to do phone banking. Call everyone in our territory and tell them that they should opt out. And they told some of those people, if you don't opt out, the lights won't stay on. So really egregious things were happening then, and the code of conduct was intended to protect against that. Well, when PG&E hit the deadline for filing their marketing plan, they also had the option of filing, stating that they do not choose to market. That was what they chose to do. They chose to file a statement saying we will not market in a CCA community. So they have not filed a plan. Therefore, they should not be marketing. The piece that's missing in the code of conduct is something that we argued for during the year that proceeding was in play in 2012. What we argued for is that the protections that apply to an IOU should extend to any third-party intermediaries that might act in the interest of the IOU. That might be a union, for example, or it might be a chamber of commerce, for example. We have examples of both of those bodies acting in ways that really favor the utility, and the CPUC ruled at the end of the day that the third-party intermediary extension shouldn't be applied unless and until there is evidence that there's a need for it.
And so that's, and that need for it is part of what now has arisen in connection with with the Hunter Stern and the various emails, just sort of undercutting marketing activities that have been going on the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Absolutely. And just to make sure everyone's up to speed on what Director Green is referring to, there was an email blast that went out on April 23rd, 4 days before the vote on the Assembly bill. And it went to a lot of folks in our territory. Some of them were customers, and some of them sent those emails to us. And the email, for those of you who haven't seen it, it was really slanderous. You know, it said a lot of things that were wholly untrue. It implied or stated clearly that Shell was looking to take over California, that they were looking to automatically enroll customers in a program, and that MCE's power was not clean or green. It was dirty power, and a whole lot of things that were just completely untrue. This email then drove people to a petition to sign on to that would support AB 2145. Now, thanks to some of our smart computer knowledgeable folks, we looked a little more closely at the email, and there's a place you can go on an email to unsubscribe or to find out how you were subscribed to a list. If you click on those links and you look at when you were added and how you were added, the date that shows up, the date that you were added was on April 23rd, 2014, 1:09 p.m. And the way that you were referred was through the Marin Common Sense Coalition. And some of you might remember that name. That was the name that was all over the really big glossy mailers that were mailed out in 2010 to all of our customers, saying that we were a big government bureaucracy taking over the power supply, and that we were going to have dirty power, we were going to have way more expensive power, and that customers should opt out right away. So there was a coalition very active in Marin County in 2010, trying to squelch our CCA program before it got off the ground. Well, this is the same coalition that handed over a distribution list to Hunter Stern, and this organization, the Common Sense Coalition, was 100% funded and created by PG&E. So there lies the concern that third-party intermediaries are being used, or potentially that PG&E even is taking a more active and direct role because the transfer of the emails happened last week. It seems that might present a non-compliance with the code of conduct.
I see. So then, but going back to the 2145 legislative process, there's nothing, that's outside of the scope of the code of conduct. That's just big league hardball that MCE is having to address because PG&E doesn't like how successful we've become and how there are other people or other entities that are seeking to do the same thing, right? Isn't that kind of the way it sums up?
Yeah, that is true. There is one small linkage, though, that was brought up towards the end of the committee hearing that I think many of us found very interesting. There was an argument put forth by the PG&E representative that due to recent legislation referencing SB 790, the McGlashan bill, they are not able to communicate with customers, that their hands are tied, and therefore it's a completely one-sided process.
I see, so they said this while they're sitting at the table?
Yes, presenting to the committee. And furthermore, that because their hands are tied, there's really a need for AB 2145 so that customers aren't forced into a program that PG&E has no way to tell them about. Now, what they didn't say is that they have every right to communicate with customers. They just need to be transparent in doing it. They need to file a marketing plan. They're required to file a marketing plan, and they're choosing not to do that. And it's just, I think the best way of characterizing it is it's making a mockery of the process that the CPUC has set up and that the legislation intended. They're simply going around that process, using third-party intermediaries, and influencing customers in a similar way without any transparency.
So they were in effect kind of, there was a reverse leveling the playing field argument.
I have an answer to Director Bailey's question. So it's likely to be heard in the Assembly sometime in May, and then it will go through the Senate Committee sometime in June, and then there's a July recess pretty much for the whole month, and then the deadline to get it to the governor is August 31st.
And sometimes there's things, sorry, can I say something? There's things called two-year bills. Is this a?
This is actually the last year of a two-year session, so this is it.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Don?
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
So, I was there also, it was more than painful. One of the things they also brought up was they did a survey in Richmond of how people understood, like who they were buying, how, versus, for energy, I should say, was that MCE, was that PG&E, but it was conducted by the IBEW, did this survey. And it was 91% of the people polled said that they didn't know who they were buying their energy from, whether they assumed it was PG&E. So something I think that's important, I'm also in a statewide CCA group that MCE is part of, an active member of it. And I think one of the many things we need to do is basically have our own poll of people, because that was really one of the things they were saying is people don't understand this. Even though they get 4 chances to opt out, that's not enough. It doesn't make sense to them. Nobody understands it. So I just think that that's something as part of the solution. We need to make that a clear message that people are given many opportunities to opt out.
Yeah, I mean, to be really clear, folks can opt out forever, any day or night. And yeah, that wasn't said.
And it was very biased. It was very clear that people in opposition were not given the same opportunity to speak as the people that were for it. So, anyway.
I think since you brought up the survey, it's actually a great point that probably should be made is that this survey that's being put forth as a rationale for the bill, they didn't use the right name. We did not do any marketing using Marin Clean Energy. It was all MCE. So that's one factor I think that it's worth knowing. Also, one of their big conclusions was that customers said they were still getting served by PG&E. Well, they are, and they're still getting their bills from PG&E. So I don't think that means that there's an issue with disclosures. I was actually surprised in the results of the survey that 24% of the customers knew who we were and had heard about us and familiar with us. And I think that shows real kudos, I think, to our outreach team for, in less than a year, that 25% of a very large community knows who we are, and I think that's a lot. So I'm proud of that result. Yeah, maybe enough said.
I would also like to add something regarding just a few things Don said. First is that Joe Como, the person who spoke for the Office of Ratepayer Advocates, is actually the acting director of the Office of Ratepayer Advocates. So usually there's an analyst or a lobbyist that's up there, but the director came up from San Francisco for that. So I think that had a big impact. The second thing is the poll. I think we had some preemption of the poll results with the packet that Jamie put together for the assembly members. I met with a few assembly members and their staff that morning of the vote. And, looking through the packet with the Richmond case study, they said, we think that you've actually done a lot of outreach and we're satisfied with the way you've done it. So I think the packet was really helpful in dispelling any misinformation before it was promulgated too far.
Director Five.
Well, there was some good news in that survey. I noted that those who approved of the Richmond City Council were almost twice as many as those who did not approve of it.
I just want to reiterate this too. Dawn already said this, but I think it's really important for anyone who's thinking about that poll that every question in that poll said Marin Clean Energy, and you all probably remember the extensive customer, surveys and, polling and, meetings that we had to determine that we weren't going to use Marin Clean Energy in Richmond as, the name of our company ever, and we didn't. It was, everything that we ever sent out in Richmond was MCE. Still, if you go to our website today, everything is MCE or MCE Clean Energy. So, you couldn't expect anyone to know Marin Clean Energy because we never used it there.
Okay, further discussion? All right, well, thank you for the thorough update. Thank you for your work, all of you, actually, in getting the information out there at the legislative level.
Yeah, Director McCaskill had a suggestion that links a little bit to this before we wrap up on the item, and that is last Friday, based on the action here through the IBEW email that went out, we did file a memo with Paul Clan, the Executive Director of the Public Utilities Commission, regarding the issue and requesting that they undertake a data request on PG&E to disclose a lot more information about how they are using their resources and who is involved in that effort and who might be acting as a third-party intermediary. Director McCaskill was suggesting, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I don't know what the rest of your reaction if you read the front page article on the Marin IJ. I thought it was an incredibly well-written article and some good investigative journalism, but it made me very angry, as I suspect it did most of you who read it. And what I think each of us ought to do is go back, and certainly I intend to do it with my city council and voters, go back and try to get each of our city councils to write a letter to the PUC. And from my vantage point, there's probably only 4 things to say. That one, that our city councils have read with alarm the article in today's IJ, and that we're deeply concerned about the reported actions of PG&E. And accordingly, that our councils urge the PUC to investigate allegations that were made in the article, and as soon as possible, and if indeed the reported actions of PG&E violate either state law or the CPUC's own regulations, we urge them to assess appropriate penalties. Because it seemed like to me, until PG&E's hands get slapped pretty badly, they'll keep doing this kind of stuff.
I think we actually printed copies of the letter that Director McCaskill drafted. If folks are interested in getting that to their own respective councils.
This was just my draft of the letter from Governor.
Well, and similarly, potentially to take a position on AB 2145.
Same thing, right.
So.
Right.
Can the League of California Cities help with this at all?
Yes.
It's already
Have
proposed.
they already voted?
They've already opposed, they opposed in the hearing room, and I believe they signed on to the local energy aggregation networks letter, and I believe they're sending an opposition letter themselves.
Do you know if they have a lobbyist?
They do.
And
they spoke.
Okay, very good. Great.
Yes.
Just one more question. First of all, it's terrific. Thank you very much for preparing that draft. And I certainly want to take it back to our city council at our next meeting, raise the issue with them. Going beyond that, are there more things that we can do in terms of communicating with our state legislature in opposition to the legislation itself, or the bill itself, and take a more aggressive position from a city council and community point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make a few comments, and Shawnee may have some additional comments. But because this is a grassroots effort, I think that we just need to think broadly about who might be interested in supporting this and who can we contact. I think contacting representatives is really important. Each of you on the board could certainly do that and would carry a lot of weight, because you are the only board members that have been with an active CCA for the last year, or however long you've been on the board, and you can speak to the benefits that we bring forward. You can speak to the public disclosures that we provide to customers, and the fact that we're a local government agency. We're not out to sneak anything past folks, and compliance with regulatory regulations is really important to us. And so I think communicating with anyone on either side, the Senate or the Assembly side, would be extremely valuable. If you have contacts already there that you'd like to make us aware of, that would be great. If you'd like us to recommend folks for you to contact, that would be great. But also thinking more broadly, if you're involved in other agencies or organizations, like the League of California Cities that you thought of, there might be others that you all are involved with. Spreading the word, letting us know if there's a particular body that would like to take a position on this. We're happy to come and talk or share information. We have a lot of written material that we can share.
It'd certainly be helpful, I think, to have your suggestions about who would be the best recipients of that kind of message from bodies like ours.
Great.
In a variety of different respects.
Great. Okay, that's helpful. We're actually going to be having some strategy sessions over the next couple of days regarding where the next outreach will be most focused, because we have to be strategic with our limited
and
resources.
that's why I asked the question. I don't want to just suggest that we ought to be firing stuff off to people when it's not going to count.
Yeah,
exactly. Let us know.
Okay. Well, one thing we'll certainly do at a minimum is we'll send you a list of the committee members that are on the Senate side, the Utilities and Commerce Committee, and as we get closer to the dates of other hearings, we'll keep you posted with lists of who are making decisions there.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Any other suggestions?
No, we'll probably just send a list of the Assembly Appropriations Committee members, and then probably the members of the Senate. It's actually the Energy Resources and Transportation Committee, because having it be an exact corollary would just make too much sense. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Important issue. Item 11, board member and staff matters for the good of the order. Doesn't look like we have any. We're adjourned.